Hi friends, Nick Scholl here again. How did you find the Bicinium from Orlando di Lasso, old Italian Renaissance master? Now, it doesn't go too high, it's not too fast, there's a few tricky runs, but I'd still say the rhythmic component is certainly intermediate plus, if not on an advanced level. It took me quite some hours to record this, also partly because there was one rhythmical error in the score, which knocked everything off balance, as it were. I just want to talk with you about rhythm. How do we approach this? Now, remember, in this time, this was a little while before actually strict bar lines became standard in notation. There were bar lines, but they weren't fixed, as in they weren't the same length for each bar. That standardization came a little later in the Baroque period. So that kind of explains the rhythmic complexity of this piece. There's just some phrases where you just think, where's the downbeat? So the emphasis is not always on beat one, right? You just got to get used to that. You just got to get the thing in your ear and find a way that feels good for you, adding certain emphasis, maybe even in the middle of the bar sometimes. If you're really struggling with this, remember it's in 4 half notes or 4 minims for the Brits out there. And you could stick a metronome on 4 minims, 4 half notes. Click, 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 click. Dee da dum dum, click. And if you stick on beat 4, which is a setting you should have on your app or metronome, then you'll get that first beat with a different sound, right? Mine on my Korg is deet, doot, 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 deet. So you always know where beat 1 is. That's one way of doing it. Just stick that on, maybe a little slower, tempo 60, 70, 80, and sing along. Okay, and then you'll know if you're in place or not. You may need to put a few bar lines in for the rests, etc., or 1, 2, 3, 4 in some bars. Have your pencil ready. Okay, that's point 1. Point 2 is simply there's 2 bars where I recommend an alternate position. The first one is measure 21 with the D at the end of the bar. I recommend playing that in 4th position. I personally liked playing that in a 4th position, remember, a little lower 4th, because of the B natural afterwards, leading nicely to the C in 3rd. It works well because the D is not on a strong beat, so it isn't, and it's quite fast, so it's not essential that this is your best sounding D. Still try to make it sound great, but it will work well in 4th, and it's a good chance to test that 4th position. By the way, do you know the great trick for testing alternate slide positions? It goes like this. So that was D in 1st, D in a low 4th. Just repeat them really hard as if you try and slur them, but ultimately tonguing is fine as well. It's just matching the sound, matching the pitch, right? Now we go down to the bass trombone part in the next measure, next bar, bar 25 in the lower part, right? And now we've got a fairly tricky run. Now I'd recommend taking the last A in all in valve, so actually the last 5/8 notes. So going from the B natural, C, A, B, C. I'll play it once, very slowly, so you can see my valve. The other option is to take all of the low A's in this valve 4th position. So did you see? Valve down you may not have seen, but when the A was here in an extended 4th position, the valve was down. You may not know that. alternate position very well. Again, you could match it with A to A, second to fourth. It's a longer fourth because it comes from the low D in valve 4, right? And it's an extended 4. For me, that just works well. For me, more and more I'm playing with a feeling of wanting to go out and in and not all this choppy stuff in between. That works for me personally better. It's more relaxed on the body. Everyone's different. Find out which variation works well for you and write it in and train it. Okay, there's so much flexibility we have at the trombone, especially in that valve register. It's such a beautiful thing. We're working on, bodily finesse, making judgments with every bar. For me, that's the beauty of the trombone, especially the bass trombone, so utilize it. So now I thought I'd be really, really kind for the trombone community and split this duet in channels. So first of all, I'll leave the first part out. Okay, so you can take the first part on your own, feel the sound yourself, and then after that, I'll let you take over the bass part, but only because you're so awesome and you hit subscribe. Did you know half of the watchers are not subscribed? You're killing me. You're killing my existence, my business. You're a friendly trombone player. Hit subscribe. Enjoy the duet. See you in the next video.